I swear to you, the moment I stepped out onto my porch and saw a so-called security guard pointing a loaded gun straight at my daughter's face, right there under my porch light. On the steps I sweep every Sunday, I felt 30 years of calm diplomatic training melted to pure fury. And the worst part? This wasn't some criminal or home invader. It was our own neighborhood HOA's rent-a-cop, so puffed up on authority, he couldn't tell a tired young woman from a threat. What he didn't know, what he should have prayed to every god he believes in to know, was that my daughter Madison is an FBI tactical commander who's faced down cartel strongholds and warlords with more restraint than this fool had in his pinky. My name's Thomas Whitaker, 60, retired Foreign Service officer, widower for 5 years, father of one remarkable, terrifying daughter. When I left the messiness of global politics behind, all I wanted was a little slice of calm in Pinebrook Ridge, this perfectly manicured, gated community outside of Hartford, Connecticut. They sell you on tranquility, private lakes, a golf club I never use, and the promise that their HOA keeps the place safe and neat. What they don't put in the glossy brochures is that the HOA is basically a petty monarchy run by a self-important man named Charles Denning and his equally unbearable wife, Loretta. Now, I don't mind rules. Trust me, after 3 decades of embassies and fragile ceasefires, I appreciate order. But I don't appreciate a failed ex-cop with a shaky temper and a badge he bought online pointing a Glock at my child because she punched in the wrong gate code after a delayed flight. Madison didn't flinch. She stood there, hands visible, voice calm as the ocean before a storm, telling him her name, showing ID, while Curtis, that's his name, Curtis Bell, barked threats like a wannabe SWAT team. I shouted, but she subtly shifted, keeping her eyes locked on his finger trembling on the trigger, making sure I didn't step into his line of fire. When he finally lowered the gun, after an eternity, he sneered at me about protocol. I didn't say what I was thinking. Madison did. Smooth as silk. She said, "Mr. Bell, just so you know, pointing a loaded firearm at a federal officer without probable cause is a felony in this state. Also, you might want to check your concealed carry license, if you even have one." And I swear to God, that man turned gray right there on my driveway. The next morning, the king himself, Charles Denning, showed up on my porch, pressed polo, HOA logo on the chest. His plastic smile wife pretending to look concerned. He handed me a formal written warning for failure to pre-register a guest. Madison stepped out behind me, mug in hand, hair still damp from her shower, looking every bit the polite daughter, who just so happens to know exactly how to break your wrist in 3 places if you so much as sneeze wrong. She looked Charles square in the eye and asked, sweet as pie, "Are all your guards licensed for armed private security in this state?" Because that was questionable technique last night. I didn't have to say a word. Charles sputtered, "Loretta sked about neighbors who don't respect rules." And they left, glaring at the little camera Madison had stuck discreetly above the doorbell the night before. That was her first move. She'd been home 12 hours and already turned my life upside down. And God help me, I was glad for it. In the days after, Madison made friends in ways I never managed. Linda next door, 72. Ex-school principal, 2 grandkids she practically raises on weekends. She brought us an apology pie and whispered that Charles and Loretta have been terrorizing anyone who questions their regime. And she used that word exactly. Then there was Jared, the mild-mannered lawyer 3 houses down. Turns out he's been quietly compiling complaints, but was too afraid to push back alone. Meanwhile, Curtis parked his security SUV directly across from my driveway every night, just idling there, lights off but windows cracked, watching. Madison would wave cheerfully from my kitchen window. She'd sit at my table with her laptop and phone, murmuring to God knows who in that tone that tells me she's 2 steps away from taking down a money laundering cartel. One evening, I asked her point blank, "Maddie, what are you doing?" She didn't even look up. "Dad, you ever notice how Charles and Loretta brag about all these HOA improvements, new tennis courts, landscaping contracts, security upgrades? Yet nobody ever sees invoices. Where's the money going?" She pushed a stack of printed spreadsheets across the table. Columns of numbers highlighted in that way she always does when she's preparing for an arrest warrant. Things escalated. The more Madison dug, the more the petty harassment ramped up. Trash can 2 inches too far from the curb, $50 fine. Flagpole bracket, not in compliance, $100 fine. Curtis started showing up at 3 a.m. to inspect for violations. One night, Our security cameras caught him stepping into our backyard, flashlight scanning my grass like he was looking for a hidden nuclear bomb. The neighborhood started to shift. Quiet nods and quick gossip at the mailbox turned into late-night porch talks. People swapping stories about being threatened with fines, being pushed out of social events, or having their kids' pool passes revoked if they spoke up. Then came the night that broke the camel's back. Madison caught Curtis on camera with two of his rent-a-thugs uprooting Linda's rose bushes, roses her husband planted before he passed. They dumped them in the lake behind her house. The next day, Madison called in a favor, Agent Leo Hayes, her old FBI buddy who specialized in financial crime and fraud. When Leo arrived at our living room, handshake firm, suit jacket off before he even sat down, I knew it was game over for the Dennings. Madison, Leo, Jared, and Linda put together a plan so tight, so beautifully precise, I just sat back and watched. The HOA's annual meeting, normally a boring bragfest for Charles, would become the stage for his downfall. The night of the meeting, the community center buzzed like a beehive. Madison and I walked in together, side by side, and you could feel it, neighbors leaning in, whispers dying mid-sentence. Charles opened with his usual nonsense about pride in Pinebrook Ridge and protecting our high standards. He barely noticed Madison setting up a laptop by the projector. When they opened the floor, Madison stepped up, calm as ever, and said, "Before you vote on new security funds tonight, I think everyone deserves to see exactly what you've been paying for." Click. Up on the big screen, in glorious HD, Curtis Bell, on video, pulling a gun on her. Neighbors gasped, some covered their mouths. Madison's voice cut through the stunned silence. Illegal brandishing of a firearm by an unlicensed security guard, hired with HOA dues. Before Charles could jump in, Leo stepped forward, badge out, voice low but caring. "Also, you might want to explain these wire transfers to a shell company in your brother-in-law's name." He slapped down printed bank statements that made my stomach turn just glancing at them. Curtis, cornered, tried to bluster his way out. He lunged at Madison. That was a mistake. I can't describe it properly, you'd have to see it in slow motion, but in less than 2 seconds, he was face down. Wrists zip-tied, Madison kneeling calmly on his back, like she was tying her shoe. Police came. Neighbors cheered. Charles tried to run. Literally run for the back door, but 2 officers, tipped off by Leo, were already waiting. Loretta fainted so dramatically she nearly hit her head on the refreshments table. And just like that, Pinebrook Ridge took its first breath of fresh air in years. It's been 3 months now. Madison's back on assignment overseas. Linda's roses are blooming again. Jared's the new HOA president, under strict oversight, of course. The new security firm is local, licensed, and unarmed, just how it should be. And me? I sit here on my porch some evenings, glass of bourbon in hand, thinking about how you can escape world politics, but you can't outrun human ego and petty power games, not even in a picture-perfect cul-de-sac. So if you're watching this and you've got your own HOA horror story, or you've ever wished someone would stand up and tear down the paper tyrants running your neighborhood, drop a comment below. Tell me your worst. Tell me how you'd have handled a guard pointing a gun at your child. And if you see someone like my daughter moving in next door, trust me, be glad. Because not all heroes wear capes. Some just read the bylaws and make sure no bully ever forgets what respect really means.